Greetings, metalheads, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and today I'm back with another album ranking. This time, tackling the discography, the full-length studio albums, that is, of possibly the most feared, revered, and renowned black metal band of all time. Certainly one of the biggest names in black metal, and a band that is known not just within the metal world and the metal scene, or even within the black metal scene, known for all of the controversies, the heresies, stories of murder, suicide, church burnings, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you've probably guessed by now, I am talking about Norwegian black metal legends, the mighty Mayhem. So Mayhem have been around for a lot of years, since 1984 in fact. So this year, in 2024, they're celebrating 40 years of Mayhem. 40 years is a hell of a long time to be in metal. 40 years is a hell of a lot of time to be alive. It's a long time to do anything, but within that time, we actually only have 6 full-length studio albums, which really is not that many at all. That's not a very prolific rate of releases, but that said, the albums that we do have within that time are incredibly interesting. And looking at the history, and I'm not going to go into detail of all the events throughout Mayhem's career, because we would be here forever. I'm sure there's plenty of other reviews that you can watch and things you can read if you want that history of Mayhem. We're just going to be focusing on the 6 full-length studio albums today and ranking them in my order of preference. So from my least favourite to my favourite. Please do bear in mind, as always, this is entirely based on my opinion. You are entitled to your own opinion. You can agree, you can disagree, and that's absolutely fine. But this is all harmless, good-natured metal talk. So Mayhem, 6 albums, we're going to tackle them, as I say, my least favourite to my favourite, but just revisiting Mayhem's discography for the purpose of doing this ranking. A, because they're a legendary band and it's a difficult one to tackle their discography because there's some really strong moments and then there's some really rather odd moments as well. But just revisiting their catalogue reminds you of just how weird Mayhem's career has been, just how unusual and unorthodox and completely bizarre their career has been. They are a fantastic band. I think they are certainly stronger now and more stable now than they have been for the majority of their time. But what an interesting, very unique band. That's the word I'm looking for. Totally unique. Mayhem, there is no other band like Mayhem. So, starting with album number 6. Unfortunately, I do not have it as a standalone CD. I have the CD, the album, as part of this rather nice box set. This is a season in Blasphemy, I should say. This is a Season of Mist release from a few years ago that comprises 3 full-length albums. So my number 6, my least favourite Mayhem album, the second album of theirs that I actually heard, and that is the one that's cover is illustrated at the top there. This is from 2000. This is A Grand Declaration of War. Now, I'm not going to say it's a terrible album because it isn't a terrible album. It's just very, very weird. And I've really tried over the years to try and get to grips with it and understand it and enjoy it. And I think it does have its moments. There's some tracks such as the title track, A Grand Declaration of War, and the following track, In the Lies Whereupon You Lay. They're good tracks. That's strong material. It's considerably different from the album that came before that, many years before. Yeah, it is different. But those are good tracks. It's just, once things get going, it's all over the place. It's really quite an interesting album in terms of maybe its experimental aspects, but I really can't quite get my head around it. There's lots of sort of breaks and pauses and sort of untitled interludes. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Maniac, the vocalist, frontman at the time, good vocal performance, but certainly not his strongest. And he adopts this very, very sort of Joey Dead Kennedy's vocal style at times, and that I also find a little bit difficult to follow. But Jello, I should say, not Joey. But interestingly, it's a very experimental album that I just can't quite get it. So that's why I'm going with A Grand Declaration of War as my number 6. I'm not going to say it's a terrible album, as I say. There's moments on there that are ripping black metal, but then there's a lot of very experimental, weird stuff going on there, and I feel like it really has no pace. It really struggles. I think the best thing about it is Hellhammer's drumming, because that guy is an absolute machine and just one of the best drummers of all time. And I know there's going to be fans out there that swear by A Grand Declaration of War, and that's fine. I just clearly have not got the intellectual capacity to understand it and appreciate it fully. So number 6 is Grand Declaration of War for me. Number 5 then is the album that came out in 2007. And I always end up mispronouncing it, so I'm going to make sure I get it right now. This is Ordo Ad Chao. Album number 4, in fact. The first album post the debut to feature the mighty Attila on vocals. Now that guy has one of the most unique vocal styles. Very weird, very creepy, very unsettling, but he is an absolutely amazing vocalist. His voice perfectly fits Mayhem's crazy, chaotic and heretical music. Ordo Ad Chao was the first Mayhem album, and depicted down there in my bottom right. First album of Mayhem's that I actually heard. It was the first one that I heard. I believe I actually even had it as a standalone CD, and whatever happened to it, I don't know. I have no idea, but I remember quite clearly, I must have been about 14 at the time, listening to it and not knowing what the hell to make of it. I thought it was weird, it was creepy, it was just chaotic and odd. I couldn't stand it. Totally did not get it. Many years later, when I revisited it, I grew a new appreciation for it. I think that it's a very interesting album. The production is so dull. It just sounds so authentic. It sounds raw. It sounds like it's been recorded live in a cave. Weird album. Some very weird tracks there. Kicks off with A Wise Birth Giver. Weird freaking track. Very dark. Very unsettling stuff. Wall of Water is equally as freaking weird. Great track though. Just caustic black metal that is so lo-fi and so just rough. Basically just rough and raw. It is authentically brilliant. Then we get some more sort of cracking tracks actually that is just really primitive, raw black metal. Very Mayhem. We get Great Work of Ages, Deconsecrate. We get a 9-minute plus haunting, chilling, evil track, Illuminate, Eliminate, which is great. Probably one of the standouts, along with Psychic Horns is another good one, and Key to the Storms. A really good album, a strong album, some good material there. But again, I think that the production kind of works in its favour and disadvantages it as well at the same time. It does work and it kind of doesn't. It's also just a bit odd. There's some really doomy vibes in there. So it's not just raw caustic black metal. There's some really strong doom vibes in there. And there's a lot of ambient experimental stuff in there. It's an interesting album, but weird. A very unique one. There's certainly no other album that sounds quite like it in black metal outside of Mayhem. their discography. So number 5, Ordo Ad Chao. Then we're on to album number 4, which actually we're going to leap forward to the most recent release. This is Daemon, or Demon. This was released in, I believe it was 2019. Yeah, about 2019. This is a great album. I've really loved revisiting this one because at the time I think I kind of failed to appreciate just how good an album it is. It sounds like a really authentic, honest black metal album. It does sound like Mayhem. You know, we've had a lot of lineup changes in terms of Blasphemer. The mighty Blasphemer is out of the band, fine. But we do have Gaul on guitars, or Gull. I'm not really quite sure on the pronunciation of that. Gull? Who knows? And we've also got Telok on guitars as well. So we've got 2 guitarists, but we've got the core of the band there. We've got Necro Butcher on bass, and we have the astounding superhuman Hellhammer behind the kit, and the demonic Lord Attila on vocals. All round, this is just a superb album. It's a really, really, really good, strong black metal album. It kicks off with The Dying False King, which is brilliant. I would say it's almost a little bit more formulaically just black metal. Whereas you had all those crazy experiments with Grand Declaration of War and Ordo Ad Chao, this is much more back to the sort of black metal that we were getting with the debut and, of course, the mighty Wolfslayer Abyss. But that's a really strong way to kick off an album. The Dying False King, into Agenda Ignis, into Bad Blood, into Malum, Falsified and Hated. It's actually bloody brilliant. Worthless Abominations Destroyed is a bloody great track, and just a killer song title. Right through to Demon Spawn, bit of a longer, gutsier track, shall we say, of Worms and Ruins, and Invoke the Oath. Full of atmosphere, full of energy, full of authenticity, full of just mayhem. It sounds like Mayhem to me, but that said, it's a very well-produced, well-rounded album. It's a black metal album, and it actually sounds really good. It sounds miles better in terms of its production than its predecessors. Certainly its predecessors post Chimera, not to say too much. The album's actually produced by Tora Stierna, not really sure on the pronunciation, and Telok. Very good sound. It sounds really good. It sounds absolutely cracking. So that for me, album number 4, it very nearly ranked slightly higher, but it's just that the other albums are a little bit stronger in my opinion. But that said, no discredit to this absolutely brilliant album, and if this is the Mayhem of more recent times, then I'm very much looking forward to hearing what they come up with next. So number 4 for me is Daemon. On to number 3 then. Number 3 from 2014, Esoteric Warfare. This album is bloody great. This was, I think I was a little bit late to the party. This was one of the most recent albums of Mayhem's that I actually heard. It might be, oh yeah, along with the newest one, the last ones I actually heard. But when I heard this one, I was absolutely blown away. Again, it's got the very murky, very dull sounding production that characterised Ordo Ad Chao. You know, it's a number of years later, 7 years later, but it had a very, very similar sound, although slightly better. The lineup changes have occurred by this point. We've got Necro Butcher, Hellhammer, Attila, and then we've got Telok. So there's our lineup here. But this is a beast of an album. This is dark. This is evil. This is the Mayhem of old. But I don't know. This just sounds like next level diabolicism. Kicks off with Watchers, which is full throttle, frantic, blasting, caustic, face melting black metal. Then we get Psywar, which is an absolutely cracking track. Again, this is raw black metal. This is sort of black metal that just tears the skin from your flesh, from your bones, from your whatever. I don't even know. It's freaking evil. Best track, in my opinion, is the third track, Trinity. Kicking off with a Jericho siren and all the other sounds of war. Freaking monster of a track. Absolutely stunning. Evil freaking stuff indeed. Daemon, whatever. Killer. My Lab. Oh, this is actually brilliant. Throne of Time is a great one. A personal favourite is Corpse of Care, which has some genuinely unnerving vocal work from Attila. A really good album. A little bit longer in duration and a little bit more sophisticated. This is a much more serious album. That's certainly how it comes across to me anyway. Start to finish, this is a beast. But if the only tracks you check out are Trinity and I'd say Daemon, Corpse of Care is freaking great, then I think you'll be convinced. It's a bloody great album. Number 3, Esoteric Warfare from 2014. So, now we're on to the serious business end of things. And we're coming back to this box set for the final release from 2004. This is gotta be Chimera. Wow, this is a freaking good album. I absolutely love this album. So Chimera is a very heavy album. It's almost verging on kind of black and death metal at times, but it's just Mayhem going full throttle. It's dark, it's evil, it's heavy. Hellhammer's, some of Hellhammer's best drumming, I think. Maniac on vocals. Well, in my opinion, his best vocal work from his era in Mayhem, certainly on studio albums anyway. Fan-bloody-tastic. It's a much more stripped back to basics black metal, but very freaking heavy. All-out assault. Kicks off with a beast of a track called Whore into a very, very good tracks. Very sinister, dark track. Dark Night of the Soul. Also, absolutely love, I'm praising Hellhammer's drumming here. Absolutely love Necro Butcher's bass work through this album, through Chimera. Very prominent. Thick. Oh, it's great. It's just freaking great. It just gets you excited just thinking about it. Rape Humanity with Pride. One of the best tracks is My Death, which is so creepy. That is a very creepy track. Absolutely amazing. Maniac's vocals there. Oh, it's like a man possessed. And he is like a man possessed. That guy was crazy. Absolutely insane. You Must Fall. Absolutely brilliant. And the closing title track, Chimera, as well. What a dark, evil epic that album is. Start to finish, very heavy Mayhem. Bringing things right back to basics. Number 2 for me then, the mighty Chimera. So you will not be surprised, I'm sure. The number 1 for me has to be the debut album. This is Mysteriis Dom Sathanas. This album is an absolute classic. This is a benchmark black metal album. One of the greatest black metal albums of all times. It's been covered, it's been inside and out, it's been worshipped the scene over. It is a legendary album. And I like that on the back here, it's got the tribute to Euronymous, of course the legendary Euronymous, and of course the mighty Hellhammer. Been there the whole time. That guy is just such a freaking machine. You've also got Attila on vocals on this album, stepping in for this recording. Start to finish, this is just all classic. All Mayhem classic. All black metal classic. This is essential black metal listening. This is one of the most essential black metal albums of all time. Alongside maybe, I don't know, Under a Funeral Moon. It's got to be one of the most essential black metal albums of all time. I believe this was 1994. Off the top of my head, I can't quite recall. 1990. I believe it is 1994. Mysteriis Dom Sathanas. Funeral Fog. Freezing Moon. Cursed in Eternity. Pagan Fears. Life Eternal. From the Dark Past. Buried by Time and Dust, and of course the title track, De Mysteriis Dom Sathanas. What more can you say about this absolute classic? It's raw, it's primitive, but it's energetic. This is the sound of the very core essence of black metal, in my opinion. Norwegian black metal, certainly in the early 90s, of course, we know it was a thriving scene. It was overflowing with amazing bands coming out all out of the woodwork, and some cracking debut albums were produced in that time. But a little bit late to the party, maybe, for releasing their debut full length. But this material, some of it had been around for a little while. Of course, we had live albums and bits and pieces being released and worked on prior to that, but this material was absolutely classic, essential. So yes, my favourite album from Mayhem is De Mysteriis Dom Sathanas, and it is, of course, a favourite from most black metal fans, most Mayhem fans. Not everyone. Total respect to you if your favourite album is from Mayhem is a different album other than De Mysteriis, but if I was a betting man, I'd say the majority of fans probably would gravitate back towards this benchmark debut. This is magical. It's evil. It's some of the most evil sounding black metal I've ever heard. But it is a masterpiece. The drumming, those riffs are caustic. It was a very interesting time in black metal, but also a very interesting time in Mayhem's early life, because there were people coming and going. There were a lot of different ins and outs. Of course, you had Dead, you had Euronymous, and the whole controversy and all the stories revolving around those guys. But this stands the test of time. Absolutely bloody brilliant. Frickin' love it. Like 30 years on, it still sounds like an absolute monster. A diabolical, evil, satanic monster. Some of the best black metal in the business. So, there you have it. My rankings of the discography of the mighty Mayhem. Number 6, Grand Declaration of War. Number 5, Ordo Ad Chao. Number 4, Daemon. Number 3, Esoteric Warfare. Number 2, Chimera. And of course, number 1, De Mysteriis Dom Sathanas. Mayhem, Norwegian black metal gods, absolute legends. I know we're only talking about the full-length studio albums here, and to avoid this review being a full hour and going through every release and live album and EP and stuff, just a couple of things. If you haven't come across the Wolf's Lair Abyss EP, which followed on a few years later from that classic debut, this contains the best, well, I'd say it's certainly the most complete release from Mayhem. I absolutely love this, start to finish. This is evil. It bridges the gap between De Mysteriis and Chimera, in my opinion. Wolf's Lair Abyss, 5 tracks of evil brilliance. Absolute freaking masterpiece. And if you want a good career-spanning, objective look at the mighty Mayhem, check out the most recent live album. I believe this was last year, 2023. Yep, this is absolutely brilliant. This is Demonic Rites. Cracking stuff, and I've talked about this on the channel recently. Brilliant, career-spanning live album. Absolutely brilliant. Energetic, full throttle Mayhem. So, my friends, what are your thoughts and opinions on the mighty Mayhem? How would you rank their catalogue? How would you tackle that discography? What do you think of my ranking? Very interested to hear thoughts and opinions of others, as always. But thank you very much for watching, my friends. Do please feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. It's all very much appreciated. Check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. And until next time, take care of yourselves and stay heavy.